a tool often used as a form of self-myofascial release. But what does release really mean? What does foam rolling really do for you? Does it actually help you improve your ability to move over the course of a lifetime? Or could it be potentially setting you up for injury? These are the questions I want to help you answer today. So the foam roller is a self-myofascial release tool that is used to increase someone's mobility by increasing blood flow to the tissue area, by breaking up scar tissue, and to help improve that muscle length tension relationship. Let me start by identifying some of those terms that might be a little confusing. The first was myofascial. Myo referring to muscle tissue, fascia referring to fascia. And we have two different types of tissues going on right now. Muscle is a very specialized contractile tissue. It can shorten and it can lengthen. It's very elastic in nature. Fascia falls into a broader family of tissue called connective tissue. Connective tissue is a bit more plastic in nature and is found throughout the entire body amongst all the other tissues as well. The second term was mobility. Now, within our health and fitness realm, mobility is used to describe a lot of different things. For the sake of this discussion, I'm referring to mobility as one's ability to actively access all of their joints' range of motion. Different than flexibility. Flexibility is your ability to get into a very broad range of motion, but you need help. You're not actively using your muscles to go through that. You're using gravity, like if you're sitting and reaching for your toes, you can have a partner help you, but that is flexibility, which is different than the active use of that flexibility, which is what I'm calling mobility. Scar tissue was another confusing term in there. Let me start out by saying no matter what, even if you've never been injured, you have scar tissue. Scar tissue is all throughout your body. Connective tissue and scar tissue, they're made up of the same stuff. Scar tissue is made up of collagen fiber, just like fascia, a connective tissue, is also made up of collagen fibers. Now the real question is, can we actually break up scar tissue since it's the same type of tissue as all of our other connective tissues? And the last one, length tension relationships of muscles. Length tension relationship is referring to that range of motion at which you can produce the best amount of force with your muscles. Among the scientific community, we don't fully understand the length tension relationship only because we still don't fully understand the contractile mechanisms of a muscle. Length tension relationships, just like any other aspect of one's physical being, is going to be different from person to person. We do know that length tension relationships are really affected by your daily activities, whatever you're asking your body to do the most. We can't expect somebody who spends most of their time at a desk to have the same length tension relationships as somebody who's active all the time. A quick demonstration of what foam rolling can look like. You can use a foam roller. Others will use a trigger point ball. They do the exact same thing. It's just different tools. So, for instance, if we were targeting our ankle joints motion, we would commonly look at the calf muscle for its extensibility. It's gaining more motion at the calf muscle to get more motion at the ankle joint. So you would take a foam roller and you put it underneath that muscle and you'd apply pressure. So the process here is I roll around on my muscle until I find a sore spot, and then I just smash that sore spot because that's scar tissue I would want to get rid of. And if I can get rid of this scar tissue, that's going to help my muscles' length tension relationship, which would help my ankle motion. However, the vast majority of current research on foam rolling is showing that foam rolling really only provides acute changes in passive range of motion. Keyword acute. They don't last very long. And with that, there are other studies that show absolutely no change in muscle length immediately following a foam rolling treatment. It's also been shown that foam rolling does not affect performance at all. But if you have foam rolled before, you can probably remember that your muscle does feel better immediately following the treatment. But why is that? It's like we're really just playing with reflexes. There's a lot of receptors in the muscle and tendon that are sending info to your brain about the tension that's going through the muscle and whether or not it's changing length and at what rate it's changing length. Whenever you put pressure on a muscle, the first thing that happens is a reflex that causes the muscle to contract. It's a protective mechanism. It's there to keep your joints safe. Now, if you were to maintain that pressure without changing it at all for a while, then a secondary reflex kicks in, and that actually allows your muscle to relax and lengthen. That's that release feeling that we get when we hold the trigger point or the foam roller on there long enough. However, since it's just a reflex, that's why the feelings of tightness set back in within hours or just by the next day. You're pretty much right back where you started. So what is really needed to actually get a lasting change in your range of motion? Well, we got to look back to that scar tissue and really connective tissue as a whole. So what do we know about connective tissue? Well, we know that it needs force put into it to know how to act. What's important here is that force is a vector, meaning that it has magnitude and a specific direction. Now the foam roller, it is applying force to the muscle. However, we have to think about its direction. It's only compressing. It is literally just smashing the tissue. It's telling the tissue to go that way. We need a force that tells the tissue to go that way, or that way, or that way. Those connective tissues, that scar tissue, needs prolonged exposure to a force and its specific direction in order to get any change to happen. So in that light, we're not really breaking up scar tissue because scar tissue is there. It's a product of being active. It's going to increase, you're going to have more connective tissue in your muscles and everything else the longer you live. It's just the way it is. Now, we can't get rid of it, but we can certainly help it align and help it act the way we want it to promote and continue our active lifestyle. Using a foam roller to just add a compressive force to the tissue, you're not going to get any lasting changes because you're not telling that scar tissue to do anything. You're just stimulating the reflexes that are built into the muscle and the tendon. Question: what is the best use for a foam roller then? If it's not going to provide any lasting changes to your range, what do we use it for? Well, we do know that it increases blood flow, which means more oxygen. And we also know that it does provide acute increases in ranges of motion. So if you were going to use a foam roller for anything, you could use it before doing exercises with the specific purpose of actually increasing your active ability to use your range of motion. So that's mobility training. You can use this before that. It's going to unlock just a little bit more range for you so you can work on actively accessing that range, which is done under a very controlled and light load. So this begs another question of how can a foam roller possibly set you up for an injury? Now, without getting into the neurological mechanisms too deeply, you need to know that the tone of a muscle is set by your central nervous system for a reason. Now, when I say tone, I mean the muscle's sensitivity to changes in length. If it's sensitive, it's not going to like it when you move. If it's insensitive, it's going to be okay if you move. It's going to be like, all right, you do that. You keep moving. We got the range. So we want muscles to not be sensitive. Now, again, that sensitivity is set by the central nervous system. So your muscle's tightness is limiting a joint from going into a position that your nervous system, for some reason, perceives as unsafe. So let's say that you want to lift weights, you want to do squats, but your hamstrings are so tight, and you have a hard time getting deep into your squat because of your hamstrings. So you've discovered, and this is an example, you've discovered that foam rolling your hamstrings for about 5 minutes beforehand, you feel like your hamstrings relax, and now you can get a little deeper into your squat. So you've basically used your reflexes to trick your nervous system into letting you have range that is outside of the limits your body has set. You are now in a range that your brain, for some reason, perceives as unsafe. That's why it doesn't let you have it to begin with. And now you're going to load it under a barbell while you're squatting. You are asking for an injury. Now, I'm not saying you can never use a foam roller again. I'm just saying you need to be a little bit more cognizant of why and when you're using it. You need to understand what your purpose is behind using it, but you also need to understand what's actually happening versus what's not actually happening. If you're really wanting to expand your movement abilities, then you're going to need to train your joints and your tissues to move more. And that means you're going to have to put force through those joints, through those tissues. And a foam roller is simply not going to do that in a way that's going to give you lasting change. Now, I have included links to some videos that demonstrate and lead you through exercises with the intent of giving you lasting changes in your joint's ability to move. Now, here's a challenge for you if you have been using a foam roller. Follow the link to the video that I included, and instead of foam rolling, do these exercises every day for the next 14 days. Every day. And do them with intensity. And just see how you feel after the first 2 weeks of just doing that. In this post, you'll also find just a really brief overview of some of the studies that I was referring to that evaluated the use and the effectiveness of foam rolling. I've also included just a reference list so you can go look at some additional information that discusses the dynamic adaptive abilities of connective tissue as well. So enjoy the reads, and thank you for watching.